Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone, based on your time, John. Welcome in Salesforce Epics Hour. My name is Amit Chaudhary. I'm your host, and today we are going to talk about Rollup Summary with DLRS package. And today we have an awesome speaker, Daryl Moon, with us. So let me hand over to him for his introduction and for the presentation. Hand over to you.
Thank you, Amit, and welcome everybody. So in today's session, we're going to look at a package called Declarative Lookup Rollup Summaries, or as it's affectionately known as DLRS. Now, you might be familiar with standard rollup fields that you can create on a Salesforce record. For example, if you wish to do a roll-up and have a count of the number of line items on an opportunity, because that's a master detail relationship between the opportunity and those line items, you can use a roll-up summary. However, sometimes all you've got is a lookup field and you can't do a roll-up summary on a lookup. So this is where you can utilize DLRS. You may also have other related records that you wish to count. And in this example, we're going to look at how we can solve a problem on opportunities where we want to see what the activity is. Okay, we want to see how active the sales rep has been on interacting with that customer, and does the opportunity tell the full story? Just quickly, there's my background and contact details. Okay, so the question is, how do we measure activity on an opportunity? We want this opportunity to show the full story about the communication that we've had with that customer. And we need to have an easy way that we can see, perhaps we're the sales manager and we're approving the opportunity or we're reviewing it. We want to see that the sales exec has been actively engaged with that customer. And again, the opportunity's got to show the full story. We should be able to do that approval at 3 o'clock in the morning and not have to call the exec to say, hey, you know, why did you offer them such a steep discount? You know, the whole story should be recorded on that opportunity. So that's what we're trying to encourage. So we're going to create an activity score, and it's pretty simple, but it's the principle and how we use DLRS that's the important part here. So this activity score is going to measure the number of emails that have been sent and received that are related to this opportunity, the number of calls that the exec has made that are recorded against this opportunity, and the number of tasks that have been created. Okay, have they created future tasks to follow up with the customer, and maybe they've sent them a quote, you know, have they set themselves a task to remind them to chase up with that customer in a couple of days' time. So we'll be using DLRS to count those emails, those calls and those tasks, and we'll create a formula that will calculate and display that activity score. Okay, so let's have a look at how we do this. I'm just going to stop sharing that screen and just switch it to my other screen. Just give me 1 minute. And I want to go over here to screen number 2. Okay, Amit, can you just let me know, can you see my recently viewed opportunities?
Yes, we are able to see your Salesforce sandbox.
Awesome. Okay. So here we've got some opportunities. Nothing special. We do have a little bit of activity over here. So we've got a follow-up task, we've got an email, and we've got a call that's been logged. Okay, but we want to have some sort of score that we can instantly show that there's a good level of activity here on this opportunity, okay, or maybe there is none. So we want to be able to instantly look at it and go, oh, that one's going well, that one's not going quite so well. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to get our declarative rollup rollup summary. That's why we abbreviate it to DLRS. So here's the link. I'll get Amit to post that link in the notes later on. However, we just can scroll straight to the installation section and click on this link, and off it will go and install for us. There's a nice little metadata deployment tool that he uses for this. This is what it looks like when it's going through the installation, just like installing any other package. It asks for some permissions and then it goes through and does some installation. You get to choose this button when you're starting the installation, asks you to select the org that you want to install it in, and then away it goes and takes a couple of minutes and does the install. Okay, so let's say we've fired that off and that's busy installing now. We need to now create some fields that are going to store our scores for these number of emails and calls and tasks and so on. So we're going to create some custom fields. So just quickly, we're going to create a new number field. This first one we'll call emails count. Okay, this is just going to be the number of emails that the user has sent. We'll leave it at the default. We don't need any decimal places. I'll just leave this all at defaults and we'll put it on the opportunity layout, but we will move that later on. Okay, so that's our first one. We also want a count of calls. So again, same type of thing. So we'll have calls count. Select all the default, and then the last one is tasks count. New number field. A user's not really going to see these fields. We'll pop them down in the system information section later, so we're not too worried about what the names look like too much. Okay, so we've got our three fields. That's just going to store the number, okay? Now we want to create a formula, and we could make a really complex formula and add all those three into it. But the formula is a bit tricky because depending on how many emails have been recorded, will give them a certain number of points. So we're going to end up with a point score, a maximum of 10. So I'm going to do a quick, simple little formula for each one of those counter fields. So we'll have, what do we call this one? So that was emails count. Okay, so we'll call this one email score. So we'll do a formula. It's going to be a number, no decimals. And we'll do one of these for each of those three fields, and then we'll total them all together. Okay, I'm just going to cut and paste the formula here to save me typing it. But what we're going to say here is, if the count of emails, so that's that field that we created before, and that's going to, DLRS is going to count up the number of emails for us and put it into there. If that equals 0, then the result is 0. So our email score will be 0. If the count is 1, we'll give them 1 point. If it's greater than 1, we'll give them 4 points. Okay, so 1 point for one email. If you got more than that, you get 4 points. Okay, this is towards the score out of 10. And of course, you could adjust that however you like, but we just keep it nice and simple. We'll let everybody view that because it's a read-only field anyway. And we'll put that on the page and we'll do another new one. So that was our emails count, our email score. We'll do another formula for our calls score. Basically, pretty much the same, no decimals, except because we're going to do a score out of 10, I've just adjusted this so that the maximum there is 3 points. Okay, so if you've got 2 or more calls recorded, then you'll get 3 points. If you got 1, you'll get 1 point. You got none, you'll get 0 points towards our calculation. Okay, so keeping those formulas nice and simple, but also allowing them that if you wanted to adjust that a little bit, you could make some more changes to that formula quite simply. Okay, that's our calls, and we've got one more, our task score. Okay, and that's a number with no decimal places. Next. And it's pretty much the same as the calls one. So, okay, maximum 3 points if you've got more than one call. Okay. So now we've got 3 fields to hold the raw scores. We've got 3 fields to do the individual calculations that is going to go towards our activity count. And then the last one is our final total, our final activity score. So that will be another formula, and it's just going to add those other 3 together. So we'll call this one activity score. Okay, and it's going to result in a number with no decimal places. And that's going to just simply add those 3 that we had before. And I think I called them emails, calls, tasks, but the syntax checker will confirm that. Yes, we got that right. Okay. Right, so let's just jump into our page layer and we'll just have a look at where those ended up, because we don't want them displayed for every customer, every user. So we might just drag these down the bottom. So we'll just grab all of those and we'll just drag them down here out of the way. Okay, so we've got count of emails. We might pair them up so we can put the score, and then we can have our score for that one and our tasks count and task score, and then our total activity score at the bottom. Okay, so DLRS calculates this one, says you've got, the count says you've got 5 emails. We then do some weighting on that score and we say, well, if it's 5 emails, that's worth 4 points. We count up the calls, we weight that, get so many points. We do the same with tasks, and then we add all 3 of those together to get our activity score. Okay, now just doing our preparation, let's have a look now at an existing opportunity. Now we haven't done any calculations yet, so the numbers are going to be empty. Okay, so emails count, so there's nothing there at the moment. So there's still no scores. But because we're an admin, we can go and manually adjust these if we like. So we can, let's put a 1 in for each and just see what happens. Okay, so if there's a 1 email, that gives us a score of 1, 1 count gives us a score, 1 call, 1 task, adds them up. Okay, that looks good. Emails, if we had more than so many, we got 4 points. Does that work? Yes, we got 4 points for our email. So we're just checking that our formulas are working. If we got 3 calls, this one's only going to give us 3 points. And that's correct, it did. Likewise with the tasks, if we had 3 tasks or more, we're only going to get a score of 3. That's fine, and it's added up to 12. How do we do that? 4 and 3 is 7 and 3 is 10. What have I added to get 12? I mean, spell activity right. Let's go back and double check and see what's going on. We won't change the API name. Emails count plus calls count plus tasks count. That looks okay. Oh no, we're doing the count. We should be doing the score. Okay, that's what's wrong. Okay. So we want we'll start with the email score. Okay, so we're not adding up here the count, but we're adding the scores. Plus insert field plus call score plus task score. It's better. Okay, go back and refresh, and now we should have 10 for our activity score. And we do. Okay. All right, so we've proven that the formulas are all working. So we're weighting the scores and then we're adding up those scores to give our final activity score. Right, I'll just set these back to 0 so that when we get it DLRS calculating, it will all work correctly. So it should all be set at 0 at the moment. Okay, so next step is we'll use this page. Let's jump into declarative. Okay, here we are. So there's an app because there's a couple of tabs here. Okay, so this is what it looks like. There's a welcome screen. There's a tool page here that just verifies to make sure that everything's okay. Your installation has gone fine. Next step is let's create some Rollup Summaries. So we start here by creating a new, and if you have existing ones, they'll display on this drop down. So if you wish to edit one, you can go and select that, but we're going to create a new one. And we're going to call this one Opportunity Emails Count. There it is. Save me typing it. Unlike when you're creating custom fields in Salesforce, it doesn't automatically populate this API name for you. So you've got to populate it. Okay. And you can't have spaces. So you have to replace them with underscores. Okay. Now, likewise, so these are not lookup fields. So you've got to do a bit of work here. So this one will be our parent object will be the opportunity. That's where we're looking. We're looking at the opportunity. That's our parent. So we're going to start with that. Now, this first one is to count the emails. Now, they're stored as email message is the object for that. So we'll type our email message. And the field that is used for the relationship between the email and the opportunity, that relationship field is called related to ID. Now, let's just go back to setup and just have a look and see what we're talking about there. Because this one will trip you up. So we said our parent object is email message. Okay, so there is an object where our emails are stored. Here it is, and we're going to have a look and see what these fields are related to. Okay, so what does that mean? Okay, it's a lookup. So an email message can be related to a contract, an order, a campaign, account, opportunity, just about everything. Okay, and that is the field that is going to contain the ID of our opportunity. Okay, so we're going to use that relationship. The field that we're going to aggregate, or the field that we're going to count in the email message object, doesn't really matter. We can just use ID. Okay, we know that the records, the email messages, if they exist, are going to have an ID. So let's just use that. Now the operation, so you can order them if you want to sort them and so on, but we just want to know the number. And we're not adding up that number, we're just counting the records. So here are the different things that you can do. So you can do an average. That's something that you can't do with the standard Salesforce rollup. Okay, so you can do an average. You can sum or total all the numbers. You can have a maximum, minimum, average, count distinct, which means how many unique ones are there, just count those. You can concatenate, distinct, first, last. Okay, we want to count. We want to count how many there are, and we want to store that value in our emails count. Okay, that was that first field that we created. This is where we want to put that number. Now, this is step one. We save now. We don't complete this section on the right here yet. Okay, so we do a save. If all went well, we spelt everything correctly, it will successfully save. Now what we need to do is for these lookups to run automatically, DLRS actually installs a trigger in the background for us. And the good thing about that, and you'll see it when we deploy it. So the next step is manage the child trigger. This is to put the trigger on this email message object so that this will run every time a new email message is created, deleted, updated, etc. Okay, so we'll click that button to deploy this. And you can see, okay, so a bit of Apex code here for the trigger, but the important part here is, okay, so the trigger is called DLRS email message trigger on email message. So that means it's on the email message object, and it's going to run before a deletion, before an insertion, before an update, after a delete, after insert, after undelete, after update. Okay. So if we do any of those things to a record, this is going to run again and make sure that our count of emails is accurate. So all we need to do is click deploy on there. Takes a little while to run. And we're going to do this 2 more times for calls and tasks. However, we only need to deploy. Now, calls and tasks are an interesting one. They are basically both tasks. Okay, it's complete. The trigger's installed, everything's good. Okay, let's go back to our Rollup Summaries, this one. And here is the one that we've just deployed. Okay, it's all good. Now, it's not active yet. So the next thing is to make it active. And we can choose whether it runs in real time. So it runs automatically every time there's any change for that email message. It runs and recalculates. Or you can schedule it. I don't even know what developer does. You can use Process Builder as well. I pretty much just use real time all the time. And you can also select the sharing mode. Which sharing mode do you want it to run in? Do you want to run in the context of the user that is updating that email message, or do you want to run it in system mode so that you're going to catch them all regardless of what the user has access to? As you do that. Okay, and we hit save. And okay, so that one's now set up, ready to go. There's one more thing we need to do. Usually when you build some sort of a flow or an automation or some formulas or something, you've got to go back and update all your old records and get the numbers. You know, it might work on new records, but you have to go back and run it again, run something to update all of your old records. We can do that here. We can run a full calculate now. Okay, so if we click on this, we don't need to do a select any particular records. We're just going to run a full calculate job. So it's going to run through all of the email messages and update the scores for the opportunities for us. Okay, so that one's in progress. We'll create our two new ones. So the next one is going to be okay, our number of calls. So this will be opportunity calls count. Again, that's our parent object is the opportunity, and calls are tasks. Okay. And this is a little bit different to what we've done before. We're still going to count just IDs. We're going to do a count on those. We're going to put it in calls count. And we're going to aggregate all rows. Now, what this means is, so what happens to tasks and calls and those activities on a record is that after a period of time, they get archived. So we still want to count them. You know, I think the archiving kicks in after about 18 months. We still want to count that number. Okay, so even the archived ones. We won't, of course, be counting deleted ones, and we're going to configure that in just a second. We're going to give it a name. There we go. I've already named this one before. Okay, and on the task object, we've got a similar field to what we had before, but this one's called the what ID. Okay, so if we were to go back and have a look at task, you would see that a what ID is similar. Let's have a look at it. So if we look at task, fields and relationships, if we look at the what ID, here it is, this one. So what ID is its API name, and that's what we're using in DLRS is that API name. So what ID is, what is this thing related to? What is this task related to? And again, it can be related to just about everything, including our opportunity. Okay, so that's the relationship field out of task that we're looking for. Okay, and we've got to do a little formula here, and we're going to say is deleted this one. Okay, so we're going to say we only want these tasks that are not deleted. So is deleted equals false, and the task subtype equals call. Okay, so when we create a call activity on a record, it's actually a task of type call. Okay, so it's like a record type. And in this field here, we just have to mention the names of any fields that we used in this criteria. So we've used that one, and we've used task subtype. So we just have to specify those again in here. Okay. Not active yet. We can put a description here as well. Save that. Child object does not exist. Oh, task singular. Okay, so it will tell you if you got something wrong. Okay, so it saved that. We deploy our child trigger, and again, so this one's on the task object. Before delete, insert, etc. We'll deploy that. And then we've got one more to go, and then we can see our results. Now, the third one that we're doing is tasks themselves. And it also operates on the task object. So we won't have to go through this deploying the trigger again because we've already done it. Okay, so just go back to that one that we just did, which was our calls, and we want to activate that. And we'll run it in system mode. We'll hit save. We'll do a full calculation to update all of those existing records so that they're done. And we'll just create our final one, which will be tasks count. An object opportunity, this is task. Relationship field is still the what ID. And this one is very similar to the last one, but this time, so we've got an object task and it has a subtask type, sorry, a task subtype of task, okay? And we need to put our two fields in here. Okay, the field we're going to count up, just use our ID field, we'll count that. We want our tasks count. There it is. Aggregate all rows so that we pick up any of those archived ones. Okay, save that. Make sure we haven't got any errors. No, all good. Now, if we go manage the child trigger, it's going to give us an error. It'll let us, oh, okay. Yeah, so it's going to tell us, if we notice there, that it's already installed. So we don't need to install it again because the trigger that's being installed is on the object task. We've already done that on the previous one, okay, because call also worked on that same object. Okay, so we're good. We don't need to deploy that one, but we do need to make it active. We'll change it into system mode. We'll save, and we'll do a full calculation. Run that calculation job again. Okay, so now we've got 3 calculations that should have run. Now, what can go wrong here? You may have records that will fail validation rules. Okay, so maybe you've got some dirty data, and if you were to just simply go in and do a quick update on those records, then they would fail validation. So DLRS could get tripped up by those. Fortunately, there's a log file here that will tell us if there's anything that's gone wrong. And we got lots of things that have gone wrong. Okay, so the things like the opportunity date has a validation on it. Okay, so we failed on that because we're trying to update an opportunity that's already closed. Okay, so there's a few errors that occurred on some of those records. I can safely ignore those because I know that the 2 or 3 that I'm going to show aren't included in that. But this is the place to go back and see, and then you can go and look at the parent record, which is the actual record that caused the problem. So you can open that in a new tab and you can go and have a look and go, oh, okay, what went wrong with this? And if you're still not sure, I can see straight away that the close date's probably going to cause a problem, and I've got a validation rule on that. So I might just switch this to 29th of September, that'll fix it. And if I were to run the calculation again, then that would resolve this one. You can also, in the logs there, you can select all those logs and you can delete them if you're happy that you've resolved all those problems. And then you can go back to your roll-up summary and you could select this one, for example, and run a full calculate again. And of course, hopefully that one that we just fixed won't be listed in that error log. Okay. Maybe it hasn't run just yet. There we go. Okay, so there's a few more there. Okay, so most of these are around, yeah, most of them are around failed validation rules. Okay, let's go back now to our original opportunity that we had here now, and we should have some valid score. So this is, I haven't refreshed it yet. So here is, we have a task, we have an email, and we have a call. So we should have one of each. So in theory, we should come up with emails count 1, calls count 1, and tasks count 1, and appropriate scores as well. So let's do a refresh and cross our fingers and see what happened. Okay, emails count 1, good, which we got 1.4. Calls count, hasn't picked that one up for some reason. That's interesting, and it hasn't picked up the tasks. Oh, this could be, there could be other errors on this record that's causing that. Let's just do an update to the record that didn't fix it. Okay, so the other thing that we can do is we can create a new task. Add that. So obviously one of the things that you would want to do is resolve all of those errors in the DLRS log, because they may well be things that are causing a problem here. You can see now it's picked up that task, and there are now 2 tasks. Okay, so that's accurate now. Calls is updated now as well. And the emails count, that's correct as well. So we got a total activity score of 5. Okay, a couple more things that we can do. If we go back to setup, we go to our opportunity. Not our page layout, didn't want to go there. I want to go to compact layout. Not sure which one's default. The new one, okay. We can add this into our compact layout, so we can edit that, and we can go our activity score. Let's add that, save. Okay, and while we're here, we may also want to add it to our search layouts, and I'll show you what this means. When you're looking at a list view for opportunities, for example, and you look at the recently viewed, how do you edit these columns here? Well, you can't do it here, can you? This is where you do it. In the search layout, the default layout. So if we edit that, and we add our activity score, it'll be down the bottom here somewhere, there it is. If we add that in there, and if we override that for everybody, okay, now if we go back to recently viewed and refresh, there you go, it's updated, and we've got our activity score. And when we look at one of those opportunities, bingo, there's our activity score up the top. We've hidden the detail down here in system information, which we could hide. Be nice if we could by default do that for all users, but we can't. So let's just review what we've done today. So firstly, we created a field to store the count of emails, calls, and tasks. We then created a formula for each one of these that weighted the count of records and gave them an overall score. We then took those three scores and we totaled them up into an activity score to give us a final score out of 10. Could have done it out of 100, could have done whatever you like, but it's just the principle of a counter field for each and a score that weights that, gives us so many points for however many you got, and then a total. And then we use DLRS, the Rollup Summaries tool, to configure a lookup that would populate each one of those counter fields. Okay, and it has a name and an API name, operates on a parent object, but the detail comes from the child, okay, because so it's counting up records in here and putting them into a field on opportunity. The relationship between these two is recorded here. Okay, so that's how those two are joined together. So on email message, there's a field called related to that contains the opportunity ID. Within the rollup, we're just counting records. So we could have counted any field, it doesn't matter. We just use ID because we know a record is always going to have an ID if it exists. And the operation that we wanted was to count. We could have chosen average or sum to total them, whatever. We wanted a count of them. And where do we want to put that result, which is a field back here on the parent. So we're going to put it into emails count on the opportunity record. Okay, after we saved it, we came back in, we set it active. We said we'd run it in system mode because a user may not have access, for example, to all emails sent by other users. Okay, and if we want to show all emails for the opportunity, we need to show them regardless of who owns them. So running this in system mode allows us to do that. Finally, we ran a full calculation to make sure that all of our existing records were appropriately populated. And we then went into our rollup summary and found that we had a bucket load of errors that we better get in there and fix. Okay, so there's some things here, and I can remember this message is basically telling us that we can't change details of an opportunity after it's gone into closed won stage. Well, we may need to make an exception on that for these fields, perhaps. So maybe we need to review that validation rule and change that to allow some fields to be updated. And of course, these ones here, we need to investigate and see why we can't insert or update these fields as well. So pretty much the process that I would take would be, I would run those summaries, come here, have a look at the logs, see if there are any errors. If there are, go fix them, clear the logs, run those calculations again and keep running them until I've got a clean slate. Then from time to time, you just need to come back here as part of your regular admin duties and just check your rollup summary logs and make sure that there are no errors. And if there are, you need to do something about them. You could be clever because this is just simply a Salesforce object where these logs are stored, and you could schedule a report maybe to let you know when there is something in there. Maybe you could have a daily report that only sends you the report if there are records in here, as a reminder to say, hey, there's something in that summary log. There's some errors there that you need to attend to. So there you have it. That's the famous DLRS. And if you missed the link earlier, here it is here. It's on GitHub. And a big thank you to Andrew Fawcett, who is the author of this product. I believe Andrew may have joined Salesforce now, so I think he's handed over day to day. This is Andrew here. Yes, I'm pretty sure he has moved to Salesforce. And he's handed over a lot of the administration of this group to salesforce.org as an open source sort of project. But great little tool. One place where I had a problem with it and I found it didn't work for me was in multi-currency orgs where I had dated exchange rates. So if you're only using a single currency in your org, so if you're on US dollars only, or Aussie dollar, or UK pounds, or euros, whatever it may be, now that's the only currency that you're using, you'll be fine. And it was only when I was doing currency related summaries, so I was trying to total up a number of opportunities, all of their values for an account, for example. And of course, there was the possibility that they could be across multiple different currencies. And yeah, basically DLRS had a bit of a hernia and couldn't do those calculations accurately. And I lost a bit of hair over that, but eventually found another solution. But apart from that, yeah, great package and highly recommended. So there you have it. There's DLRS. Back to you, Amit.
Thank you, Daryl. It's a really great session and lots of information. I hope our audience will be enjoyed it. And thank you so much for your time. And thank you once again for great session.
Thank you kindly. And I'll send you that link to where to install DLRS from as well, Amit.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you very much.